Hello, today on Care and Repair we're going to be sewing buttons on. So if you remember last week, threading your needle. So if you can see there's a tiny little hole. Thread. It's hard without glasses. Thread your needle and do it so you've got two plies of thread, and then at the bottom try and keep them about the same length, get them nice and smooth. So this is on a coat, so you'll notice if you look at any of your coats you normally get this bit where it's quite big at the back, and that's just to allow you to fasten thicker fabric. So if you see it's like that, it kind of gives it a bit of space so you're not instantly going to pull your button off. Sometimes you'll have a little protector button on the back, like this one. If you can find the buttons that have come off, by all means put the second one on. This one, you'll see it has got 4 holes in it, so it's got a little cross through it, so if I put the needle underneath you might be able to see. My spare ones that I'm sewing on, I've got a 2 hole and I've got a shank button which is at the back. So these are quite good if you are sewing buttons on just to put new buttons on. These ones are quite good because they do disguise messy sewing. This one I'm going to attach this button here. So what you want to do is mark where your hole of your other buttonhole sits. So how you do that is shut your coat up. Sometimes you might have like a little mark on the bottom where your button's been, where it's come off, or you can line them up as if you were fastening your coat, and then that's where your buttonhole will be, and just put a little mark right in the centre, so you'll see that's where that'll be. If you're just starting, I'm just going to pretend that it goes in here. What I'm going to do is, if that's where the hole, this where my nail is where I want the button to go, I'm going to thread the needle through and just get the needle to come out there. You'll notice that I didn't put a knot on this end this time. So this is the thread. I'm going to pull it through so it just about goes into this hole here, like that. And then here, be really gentle here because you don't want to pull it too hard. But here, just do a little loop and come back out with your first thread. So what will happen is you'll have just, no, I wasn't that gentle, then I pulled it both out. I'll start again. This is why it's quite important for these two to be at the same length. So put your needle in. Now I'm not going right through to the back, I'm just doing this in the top layer. Put your needle in, come out where you want your button to be. Pull so your threads just disappear. And then here, do an extra stitch coming out at the original hole. And now that should be quite secure to start putting your button on. So I'm going to use a 2-hole button. I normally like the 2 holes to sit in line like this, like straight across, but that's just me being fussy. Now hook your button on like this and then go through the second hole. And now what you want to do is, as you doing your stitch, just keep a little gap here. So you'll notice on this one it's about 1 centimetre, but you can do like 1/2 centimetre and just go through the other side of your stitch on that side, back up through your original hole, and you've got like a little loop. You want your button to be a bit dangly. Now do this a couple of times depending on how much thread you've got really. I started with a smaller bit of thread just because I had it there, but again, through the second hole that you put in and out through the first, and keeping your button so these stitches here are quite taut. Back through. If you're using a fluffy fabric you might find that it gets caught a bit. Now in through your second hole, out through the first, Now what you want to do is stitch between these two stitches that you've got here. So I don't know whether you can see that clearly, but see, I've ended up with 2 lines here. 1, 2. Take this thread and go like this and loop through. Just do that quite a few times till you start to kind of pull them together. So what you're trying to do is just create a bit of strength between them. Now, when you've done that a few times, you should kind of look like you've got almost like 1 thread at the back. At this point, start wrapping your needle and thread around a few times. This kind of creates a shank, which is what you get on these buttons. But it just creates a bit of extra strength in your thread. So now I've done it a few times. I'm going to go in through this hole that I started and out through the second hole. Pull it through. Now, just again for a bit of neatness, a bit of extra strength, I'm going to try and go, you might not be able to do it because it might be quite tight. Yeah, it's too tight for me to do it, but I'm going to do through this stitch, out through this one. I'm going to do another little loop round, and then yeah, I'm actually going to just do a little knot at the bottom. So what you want to do is grab hold of your thread, stitch it through, and then loop the needle through this and pull it nice and tight. And then this is a nice little trick. So put your needle back into your coat and stick the needle out a little bit further away. Can you see it's just coming out there? Now pull it, and instead of cutting right at that spot, what you want to do is push it along a bit, snip it, and then pull it back. And what happens is the end of the fabric just completely disappears into your lining, and you've got a nice secure button. So if you just give it a little pull, you'll see that it's fine. And if you're fastening, you've got enough space for it to not pull or drag. There you go. So back to our button with a shank. What we do is do your 2 threads, get the cut ends to be around the same length, and if you want it in line with this, I'm going to say here where my fingernail is, put your needle in a bit further away, coming out where you want your button to be, and just pull it through so that the ends of this thread here, sorry, I don't know whether you can see them, but they just disappear. So what you want is they've just disappeared into the hole, but you've got it coming out here. Now, where my thread is here, just do a small stitch, only about ½ centimetre. So what you should get is just 1 little stitch. Can you see that? You've got 1 little stitch just there. Now I'm going to start sewing. So as you can see, my thread just got a bit knotted up. I'm just going to neaten that up and then start sewing on the back. So again, thread your loop on, go back into this stitch and out on that side, and just keep a little gap, about 1 centimetre should do, and then through the back of your button and another stitch, keeping it about 1 centimetre. You can pull it quite taut, and then you can see how big you're actually doing your stitch in the back. Now I'm only going to do 3 of these today because I'm feeling a bit lazy, but I would recommend doing a few more. Now with your needle, start stitching through your 2 original stitches. So under and over on this side, and then loop it around and under and over. So it's almost like you're creating a bit of a ladder effect in the back. Now they're a bit more secure. Just start looping this thread around now. When you get to the bottom, I'll just do another little stitch through and a knot, and then a knot through, and then again do a stitch into your coat, coming out about an inch or 3 centimeters away from where you've been sewing. Get your scissors, push back into the fabric. Be careful not to cut your fabric, and you'll notice that the thread has just disappeared and you've got another button. There you go.